and welcome to another episode of the South African Spies podcast. Today we will be continuing with the Bramdaw Bite segment, and we'll be talking about our teenage years and everything that we can remember from then, because I hate to admit, but it does feel like a very, very long time ago. So joining me for this conversation once again is Mickey. Hi, Mickey.
Hello, and it was a very long time ago.
Don't remind me. I'm trying really hard not to make that the point. So I'm going to jump straight into it. Tell me, Mickey, what do you remember from your teenage years?
My teenage years were very awkward years. I distinctly remember the acne on the face and just wishing to be an adult.
Yeah, I think we really all did. We just wanted to grow up.
Yeah, I remember constantly thinking, oh yeah, one day when I'm older, life will be so great.
Yeah, same. I was ready to be 18, to be independent, to be working, to be studying, to be just doing my own thing.
Yeah, I think me too. Just didn't realize it was going to be so hard to be an adult.
Yeah, adulting is hard. They don't teach you that lesson in school.
No.
Adulting is hard. Okay, so most of our teenage years was spent in school, obviously. I think that time shaped a lot of our personality. And part of that personality was, birds of a feather flock together, and it really spoke to your friend group. So, do you remember what your friend groups were like in high school?
Yes, so high school was a bit weird, right? So, because you move from primary school to high school, and I moved from a very different level of primary school to high school, where it was a semi-private primary school and a public high school. You kind of stuck together with the friends that came across from the same primary school just because that was comforting. And only later then did I make other friends, probably only in the second year of high school.
But what do those friend groups look like?
So I hung out with mainly the nerds. I was also put in a class where it was all the top performers that got put in the same class, and therefore those became my friends. So it was a bunch of guys that were all nerds. We typically played Dungeons and Dragons together, which kind of gives you the level of nerdiness that we were on. And yeah, there was no girls involved in our friend circle. And it was quite mixed in terms of racial and cultural backgrounds. Chinese, Indian, white, colored, black, every mix.
It's a nice little rainbow group.
Very much so. I'm sure your friend circle was a bit different going to a school in the West Rand.
Yeah, it was, kind of. So in high school, I wasn't part of, the popular kids, but I also wasn't part of the unknown kids. I was kind of somewhere in between, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that my actual friends were all a year higher than me.
Like a grade above you.
Yeah. They were all a grade above me, because when I got into high school, the friend that I had from my flat,
yeah,
we went to primary school together, but obviously she was always a year ahead of me, and then that just meant that when I got to high school, she had the friendship circle established, and I just fit into it.
Okay, so someone got to make friends for you, basically.
Basically. And that was the group that I hung out with in the mornings, during breaks. We walked home together and stuff like that. So I spent a lot of my time with them, and I kind of befriended everybody of all different levels, which was quite cool for me.
Did you then get treated like the younger one, like the baby? Did they take care of you and such, or were you a bully?
No, I was never a bully, but I was taken care of. So I didn't go through anything like I did in primary school where I got bullied. I actually didn't experience any of that in high school. I think there's always that kind of, girls are going to be girls and you're going to experience nonsense and stuff. So there was a little bit of that, but it wasn't from early high school. It was more at a later stage and for the wrong reasons and stuff like that. But everything else was pretty cool. The matric friends took care of me, and the grade 11s took care of me. So I was pretty happy with friends. And then that evolved as the friendship circle obviously evolved. As friends got older, then they started like dating. Then you would spend your breaks and your mornings with your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever that was. And then it actually ended up being that my friendship circle looked like a whole bunch of Indians because I gathered all the Indians in the school. But because, like I say, sometimes girls are girls, and I think back then as teenage girls, this is just something we did. I don't know what caused it, but the girls didn't want to really hang out with this group.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just the boys, the Indian boys in the school, like all different grades, and me.
Okay.
And then one of my other friends, she would like alternate between, she was a colored girl, but she would alternate between like my group and her group, but it was like that flexi thing. And that's just what it was. And then I became the akka of the group.
The big sister.
Mm.
Okay, but you mentioned that people started dating in high school and then they clicked together during breaks and stuff. Was dating a big dynamic in terms of your school life? Not yours personally, but your school group.
Yeah, everybody was dating. Like it was a thing.
So that's
what you strived to do, is you strive to have a boyfriend.
So that's when everyone discovered this is a thing, and then we're gonna all pick someone, and that's okay.
Yeah, I was part of that lot.
I don't know if that was a thing in my school, or if I just wasn't part of it.
Is that because you didn't date in high school?
No, I definitely did not date in high school.
But you were more interested in like playing games.
I was interested in girls and stuff. It's just with an Indian mother, it's very difficult to then date and then bring someone home, because I felt if you're going to bring someone home to your mother, or at least admit that you're dating someone in an Indian household, you better be damn sure you're going to marry them.
Sure, pressure. I'm surprised to hear that, because I thought you growing up in a less cultural home, that part wouldn't really be there.
I think because my mother always put academics first, it was always seen to be as a distraction. So if you're going to date someone, it's taking away from time you would otherwise use to study. So
little did your mother know that time was not going to study anyway. It was going to play games.
I study efficiently, and I'll maintain that till I die, and I will teach it to our children. And yeah.
Well, my mother was very strict with that.
With dating?
No, with having friends that were boys.
Okay.
I wasn't allowed to, because at that point my stepfather was in the picture, and he was, Egyptian, and culturally for them, he couldn't understand how girls and boys could be friends and just not be doing other things, or what that even meant, because it's not something that he was exposed to. So naturally my mother became stricter on that, and I wasn't really allowed to. And this was very problematic for me, because I'm stubborn, number one, and number two, the boys who were, in my class and who lived in the same block of flats as me, or were part of groups, or would walk home in their own group with us, next to us, whatever, they couldn't understand that. Nobody could understand how I would need to, as soon as I saw my mother or something of the sort, I'd just go blank and I don't know you, and just cut them off. And they were like, Alisha, you're so rude. And I'm like, no, I'm saving your life here. You need to understand. You will thank me for this one day.
Yeah, I can relate to that somewhat. So towards the end of high school, I had a girl who was a friend of mine, who was very close to me. And everyone just assumed that we were going to date, or we were dating, and we were going to end up together. And it's someone even you tease me about to this day.
Because I'm telling you, she liked you. You just couldn't see the signs.
She did not like me.
She did.
We were just friends. And because we were both Indian, although she was Trinidadian Indian.
Oh, cool.
Because of that, we're both Indian. We're both a guy and a girl, same age, because we were both a year younger than everyone else. Then it was, there must be, something going on there.
There is so much more to that story.
There's nothing.
And I am telling you that she liked you, and you just...
There is nothing more
blinkers on, couldn't see it. That's our story, and that's literally you versus everybody who knows you.
Nope, nothing more to that story.
We'll leave it at that for now. I suppose this is a good point to lead into, did you lie to your parents?
When you say lie, you mean lie about girls?
Lie about anything at that, like, in the teenage phase of your life. Like, did you have to lie to your parents?
I think the only things I really lied to my mother about when it came to anything in my teenage years was studying. Was whether I was studying or whether I had studied or whether I needed to study. So there would be tests that my mother wouldn't know about because there's no reason for me to give her the full timetable. But I also realized it comes with a bit of tactic where you can't just say we're not writing any tests. You kind of give her a little bit and spread them out a little bit so that she thinks things are going on, but she doesn't really know how much is going on. Then when it came to studying, for me, that meant locking my room door and playing PlayStation. But I'd also put the music up in my room. I had a hi-fi and I put the music up so they think I'm studying, but they couldn't hear that I was mashing buttons. But yeah, that was basically all I lied to my mother about. I can't think of anything else. I think you might have a few more stories.
Yeah, no, polar opposite.
Yeah.
Polar opposite. Did I lie to my mother? Yes. What did I lie to her about? Everything. And I mean everything.
You were one of those Indian girls that had a different life at home and a different life at school.
I was. I 100% was. So I think it was also because it was a few things, right? But definitely high school was my rebellious years. I think because my mother was so strict and my stepfather, they were so strict on me and I was so constricted and I wasn't allowed to do anything at all. So I needed an out. And not that I felt like I was left out with friend groups or anything like that, but I wanted to have experiences. And so all that happened is I did everything during school hours.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I wasn't allowed to go out with friends. Even if they were girls, I wasn't allowed to go out. So I wasn't allowed to go to the movies or go to their parties or do anything. So eventually after the first year or so when people would invite me and I'd constantly just say no, 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 then I stopped getting invited. And I was okay with that because I knew it was probably easier than me having to say no every single time.
Yeah.
It did make me feel very left out. I also kind of grew into this girl because I was such a tomboy. And this was my phase of embracing being the girl in me. And I started, doing my hair and using something as simple as lip eyes. And I started wearing kajal. And, I would wear my dot. And I'd actually stopped wearing boys' clothes and would wear jeans and tops and stuff made for me. And that was really fitting. And that got me some attention. But specifically, it got attention from somebody who I was in primary school with that I liked. And then we were in the same high school and was like, oh, there's a possibility I could be one of these girls that had a boyfriend. But I knew my mother would never approve. So obviously everything happened basically at school. And it was my school boyfriend and everybody knew about us and we were dating and it was, the thing. And then things just got completely out of hand and I did do a lot of wrong things, but I don't regret any of it.
Yeah, I can't say I have that adventurous of a high school story. I think at one point, if you ask my mother now, she'd probably tell you that she was hoping that I would go out more with my friends. But my friends, even up until matric, our idea of a good time after school would be going to my mother's house. It's 6 or 7 guys and playing Dungeons and Dragons. And this was really good because we actually had a guy who was the dungeon master and he created these elaborate stories for us because he was writing a novel, because that's what he wanted to do after he finished matric, was to write novels. So he basically built up a fantasy world and we would be playing through as adventurers in this fantasy world. And that would directly be translated into what happens in his novels.
That's really cool. My idea of a fun afternoon was signing up to be scorer for the first team cricket team so that I had something to do after school. Else I'd have to just get myself back home.
Okay. I played cricket in high school. That's actually how I met the girl.
That liked you?
No.
That you didn't know about?
So,
okay.
when I was in grade 11, I was never good enough to be first team cricket, but I was second team. And her brother, who was a year ahead of me, was also second team cricket. So we became friends due to playing cricket, and that's how I met her, basically. This was cricket by force, because I had to play sport. This is not the Mikhail that actually likes cricket and likes to play sport. This was before my sporting days.
Well, it gave you a good foundation, so that's okay.
No, I barely participated. Like, the minimum I could do when you go to the nets for cricket practice was like what I would do, and then I wouldn't get selected, and then the teachers would be like, "Oh, don't worry, you'll get a chance," and I'll be like, "No, the other guy wants to play. Let him play."
Yeah, we didn't have to do compulsory. Well, maybe we did, but I didn't do anything. I didn't do sports. High school was not the time for me to worry about. I was a different person in high school. I think if you met the Alisha from high school, you'd be like, I would be unrecognizable.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like, I'm a lot more jockey now than what I was then. Like, now if you take me to a soccer field or to a cricket field, I'll be like, oh yeah, let's do this. But back then it was not so. And I mean, sports were compulsory for us in school, at least one sport per term. And the one consistent one that I could find, which was a sport that was throughout the year, was chess.
Again?
Yeah.
Can you please tell us your history with playing chess?
So my history with playing chess, and I think it happened coincidentally for both primary school and high school, was that in choosing a sport, I chose a sport that would take place on the same day as detention. And I did that so that I think chess matches were on the same day as detention, which meant when it came to me getting detention, which inevitably happened because I didn't do my homework, I would be able to get out by getting a letter from the chess coach to say that I need to be excused so that I can go play against whichever school. And added benefit is that my mother never found out.
Yeah, so you did chess. Now that I think about it, I think I did debating for a while. This was obviously the first couple of years of high school where I was very interested and I did enjoy it. So I did do debating for a while. And then I didn't do anything else. Then I was just scorer for the team. The problem is that I never got into as much trouble as the other kids that did it because I was still maintaining my marks. Like, my grades didn't suffer for it. But I was definitely not a good child.
Did your school... So I know the push for us to do a sport was especially towards grade 10 and 11 when you were applying for universities and stuff. They would say you need to do something extracurricular so that you can put it on your applications and get into good universities and colleges and stuff. Did you guys have the same push?
Yeah, that was definitely the push. But I also knew that
you weren't going.
I didn't want to study full time afterwards, so that was like the least of my concern.
And you mentioned that your grades never suffered. So does that mean your mother was strict on her expectations of what your grades should be?
No, she was always strict on like that you should be doing well. But there were exceptions, like things like Afrikaans. It was obviously not something I was ever going to do well in. So that was always my kind of get out of jail free card grade. But everything else,
I feel like you got off easy there because, you know, when I had to do Afrikaans, I didn't have a friend who could speak Afrikaans to bounce off of, whereas you did.
I did, but at the same time, it was very hard to do those things properly because even though she spoke Afrikaans, when we spoke to each other, we spoke Kombees Afrikaans. And it was like, she was so busy with her own stuff and then she would help me, but then I realized that I was suffering more because she was helping me with all the stuff that she could, and then exams came and I was like, what? I don't know how to do this and I don't know how to translate properly. I really, really struggled with Afrikaans. I mean, it was so bad that in one of my exams, I had the word water that I needed to use in my sentence. And for the life of me, I could not get the translation for water from English to Afrikaans. And instead, the only word that was coming to mind was pani, which is the Hindi word for water. But it was that bad.
That's. I still think you got off easy. You had an advantage. You could have, because even to this day, my Afrikaans is not as good as yours.
Yeah.
Even though yours is slang Afrikaans, my Afrikaans is better.
Gets me through.
Yeah. I mean, you could probably have a conversation with someone Afrikaans, like one of our friends, but I couldn't.
I don't know if I could. I think if we were talking gangster, I can speak gangster.
Yeah.
I can't speak Afrikaans. Although my mother wasn't strict with like my grades and stuff, but I was under pressure to kind of figure out what subjects I was choosing, and I had to make that decision by myself. Did you have the same struggle?
I don't think I had a problem choosing subjects because I was literally given two options. It was basically the option with accounting and without accounting.
And you went without accounting.
No, I went with accounting.
You went with accounting?
Yeah, I went with accounting.
Cool.
So English, Afrikaans, maths was guaranteed 3. Then physics or science.
Life orientation is also a guaranteed one?
No, we didn't have it as... We only had 6 subjects.
Oh.
I was before your time.
I forget you're old.
So science and biology was the other 2 that was a must for me. And then it was accounting, and I can't remember what the other option was, but I went with accounting. And that was what was presented to me by my parents. And like, you can choose between these 2 because that gives you any option you want going into university.
I chose my subjects very differently. I needed to really look at what I wanted to do after school. I was convinced all my life, and I mean all my life, I was absolutely convinced that I was going to be a vet.
Yes.
Veterinary is what I was going to go into. And I know, like, even as a little girl, when anybody would ask me what I was going to be, I'd say, I'm going to be an animal doctor, because that's all I ever thought of doing. But when I got to high school and I really had to seriously think about it, the fact that I couldn't enter any of the biology classes was a big indicator that I was never going to be able to pursue this career, because they had all these like dead things in jars and all of that. And if I ever had to go to that class for like substitution or anything, I would cry and stand outside for an entire period.
So you didn't take biology after grade 9?
No, not a chance. I knew there was no way I was doing any collection of subjects that included biology.
So you didn't get to do the cool stuff like we got to dissect a heart and dissect a pig?
Yuck. No.
Okay.
No, not at all. But then I also had to really look into becoming a vet and came to the realization that it's not something I would have ever been able to do, because as much as I love animals, I just wouldn't have it in me to be able to put an animal down. And the more I realized that that is such a crucial part of the job, I realized I was never going to be able to do it. So I had to kiss that dream goodbye and look for something else. And yeah, I figured that whatever I did, I would end up opening a business at some point. Even being a vet, I wanted my own practice. So instead I decided business management, and I had to do accounting by force. So I had to do business studies, economics, and accounting. Accounting was not my strong suit.
Accounting by force by your teachers, or just because that's your career path?
Because of that career path.
Okay.
Worst subject. The fact that I was so bad at accounting honestly made me question how Indian I am.
I mean, I was bad at accounting too, and I'm like good with numbers and stuff.
You were probably your level of bad. I was horrifically bad.
I think I got a C for accounting.
Yeah, I don't even think I managed to get there. I got lost in the first 6 months and then gone.
Yeah, I think accounting was my lowest subject. It was accounting and English were my... Actually, accounting, English, and maths were my lowest 3 subjects in matric.
Wow.
Maths, I have an excuse. I didn't study an entire section of the geometry paper because I forgot it exists. And only on the day of the exam, and everyone was going through what they learnt on all the theorems and stuff, did I realize, oops.
But I thought you were so good at, last minute efficient studying.
Yeah, I still passed.
Okay, we're going with it that way then.
Sometimes it's hit and miss. Most of the time hit, because the last minute prep that I did for biology was for my friend to give me one essay, because I didn't study out of I think there was like 11 essays and they were going to ask one, and you had to learn it by heart. So I told him, I didn't study one. You give me what you think is going to come out. And he gave me the one that actually did come out, and I got my A in biology.
Fluke. That's what I'm calling it. Fluke shot.
Yeah, if you speak to my university friends, you'll see that it's not so much fluke anymore.
It's fluke shots. That's where it started. So, choosing subjects and dealing with all these years of high school was probably the most of what your teenage years consist of, right? There's other things that obviously add to you discovering yourself and becoming the person that you probably are today. But I think a nice thing to look at that for me kind of rounded up my teenagers, or what felt like rounding off my teenagers, was the day we got our matric results. Do you remember the day you got your results?
I do. It was a very interesting day. Although at the time, most people would look at their results in the newspaper. For some reason, we couldn't find a newspaper that morning. So everyone must have bought it in our area and all the newspapers were gone. So when I got to school, everyone already knew their results before getting it formally from the office, but I didn't. So we went in. This was my mother and I. Got my results in an envelope, went back to the car, and we opened it immediately without waiting to go home. And there was my 1A, 2Bs, and 3Cs. And my mother proceeded to give me a lashing. She was swearing me. She was saying, I'm never going to get into university. I don't know what you're going to do now for the rest of your life. You need to go and figure this out. If you have to go work in Checkers and pack shelves, that's what you're going to do. Then eventually, well, that was basically the drive home, was her scolding me all the way home. And we got home, and I didn't want to be in the house at that time. Like, I just needed some air, like, to let off the frustration from getting the scolding. So I was walking around the garden, and for some reason I went to the mailbox, and I opened the mailbox, and there was mail inside. And one of the letters just happened to be for me. So I opened that letter, and it was a letter from Wits. And it was my acceptance into university.
Oh, cool.
Then I very proudly went back into the house, gave my mother the letter, and be like, there, see, now there's no problem. I'm going to university.
So you did that with attitude after you just got
there was big
the
attitude.
scolding of your life.
There was big attitude.
That's very ballsy.
But then, I think then we could actually celebrate properly after we both had a calm down a bit, and we could... But there was no big celebration. It was just congratulations. And I think they took me out for dinner or something, but that was it. I'm sure your celebration story must be a lot more entertaining given
Polar
that
opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I was just about to say your high school life was a lot more out there compared to mine. So
Yeah, so definitely polar opposite. So I was very close to my second cousins who lived in Joburg during my sort of actually from childhood. So when it came to the day of my matric results coming out, I wasn't allowed to be out at that midnight time. Because obviously my mother was super strict.
Oh, that was just curfew in general. Like, you had to be in...
I didn't get to go out. So I didn't have curfew.
Okay, yeah.
There was no going out to have a curfew.
So it's not specifically like midnight time. It's just no going out.
No, I never went out.
Yeah.
There was none of that. So at midnight, when everybody else was out and about and, waiting for newspapers to get delivered to certain places or wherever they were, waiting to hear the news and celebrate, I was at home in bed. My cousins were on the phone with me, constantly telling me, oh, cuz, don't worry, we got you, we're going to get the paper, we're going to see your name, then we're going to celebrate. And, they were like more hyped. I think for them it was an opportunity to celebrate something. And we were all young, so it was any opportunity to party. We took it. Well, they took it at that time. So they were out, I was in bed, stressed out of my mind. And then they phoned me and they said, your name's in the paper. With a lot of screaming afterwards, I don't actually know whether they told me what it said or anything. They were just over the moon, excited, and like, oh, we're going to go drink now, we're going to go celebrate. It's like, but guys, it's mine. But they were so excited and they went and they celebrated. And I waited to get to school in the morning, go get my results, and then I had a boyfriend at the time. So we went to his auntie's house first. She had champagne for us. I think it was non-alcoholic champagne. It was like, cheers. She was very proud, and we had like a little celebration there. And then we went to my mother, did the same thing. She was also excited, my sister and everybody else. And then we were still going to celebrate further. So my best friend had organized that we all go out that night. And at that time, in Monte Casino in Johannesburg, there was still a Vaka, the club that was open. There was a Vaka, and there was also a Sasa's, which was the bar close by.
Okay.
And those are the two spots in Monte. So he found out, and he's like, we're gonna go, and we're gonna party. This is our first clubbing experience, and this is what we were gonna do. Now, the problem we had is we both matriculated at the age of 17.
Yeah.
We were only turning 18 the year after we matriculated. So we were underage from our entire friend group. He was convinced that we were gonna find a way to get ourselves in. And his parents knew that this was the plan. This is what we were gonna do. And they were like totally fine with it. For me, my mother would never have let me go. So instead, we came up with this plan to tell my mother that we're going to celebrate and we're gonna go watch Avatar. Well, the plan was we're gonna go watch Avatar, but we're going for dinner before that, and also we're watching the late show.
So it's only going to finish after midnight.
Yeah, like we'll only be back like maybe about 2 a.m, because it's also a really long movie.
Yeah.
But that was the plan, and we're gonna go and have dinner and stuff. Look, my mother's not stupid. I'm pretty sure she knew what was up, but she just like let it be. It was cool. You do you, boo.
Yeah, I think sometimes we overestimate our parents' strictness. They put the fear in us from a young age, and then we kind of be like, oh, my mother won't allow that.
Yeah.
And she actually would.
No, she definitely wouldn't have allowed it, but I think she just let it go.
Yeah.
She didn't confront it or anything like that, because it did sound like something pretty legit. So that was the plan, and that's what we were doing. And we got there, and the plan was that I would use my best friend's cousin ID to get in, and he would use my boyfriend's ID to get in. So we did this, and this is one of the stories I will always tell about him. We were in the line. Everybody who had their original IDs went in first. They got stamped. They came out. The two that needed to come out for us came out to give us their ID so that we could use it again. We stood further back in the line so that there was enough people, in the queue so that the bouncers wouldn't recognize.
Yes, you all overthought this.
We really did. Wouldn't recognize anything, and then we went in on those IDs, and we did get in. I think they were also a bit lenient because they knew it was matric results nice. It was just students.
Yeah.
That was it. And we got in, and they had to, stamp you. This best friend of mine didn't realize that you needed to get stamped, and he was so overly excited about this experience. So he didn't get stamped. We proceeded to enter the club, make our way to the bars, and get the party started. And because the queues were so long, after a while we're like, let's just go and dance. And then we were dancing, having a good time, living our best lives. And then the friend groups were like, oh guys, the lines are so long, we got stamped, let's leave. Let's go to Sasa's, we'll get drinks there, and then we'll come back here. Cool, no problem, great decision. Let's all do this. So we go to Sasa's, had to tip the bouncer to let the two of us in, because, again, age thing. And they did. And then we had such a good time that we spent most of our night there. Our whole friend group. And we went with a huge group. So it was really fun, and it was really, really nice. Then my best friend was like, no, but guys, we have to go back to Vaka because this is what we came for. This is how we're going to end our night. And also, my dad is 20 minutes away. So we were like, cool, let's get going. And we made our way back. Everybody, showed their stamps, walked back in. Everything was cool. And then my best friend can't get in. And we're like, well, now what we do? And we paid. Again to get in. But we literally paid 150 Rand for 15 minutes. It was It's crazy. It was 150 rand also as like students, not people that were working.
Students a very long time ago.
Yeah, students a very long time ago. 150 rand was a lot.
Yeah.
Like a lot. You could do a lot with that. Okay, I'm not going to say a lot, but you could do stuff with that.
More than
now
that.
You can't do.
Now you just get one Nando's meal.
Barely. So, yeah, it was a crazy night. But we all had a great time. And, you know, it's like nights like that was the start of all the stories that we would go on sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard the story from your friend.
Yeah,
and,
as well.
Yeah, I mean, he says it with so much enthusiasm. It's like one of his proudest nights. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was a great night. It was a great experience.
I do have a question, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything was planned out, right? This whole elaborate plan of what you're going to do and movie and. What if someone didn't pass?
I think our like circle was so like cool with it that even if you didn't pass, you would have the choice to choose if you still wanted to celebrate with us, because the night wasn't about your results. The night was the last time that us as a high school group of friends would be going out.
Okay, that makes sense.
That was more it. It wasn't really about the results. It was just that night that was chosen.
Yeah.
As the key night, because, you know, like, school's out, you finish matric, and then you've got your December, and you go on your holidays, and you spend time with your family and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we didn't really have that time to do our last thing as a group. And that was our last thing as a group.
Yeah, we should mention that this was still in a time where you got your matric results in December before the holiday.
January.
Oh, no, I got mine in December.
Oh, I got mine in Jan. Mine was the 7th of Jan.
Oh, we got ours in December. I remember getting my results, having the whole thing with my mom, and then going away to Durban for a holiday.
Oh, gosh, no. No, everybody was able to enjoy their December with some stress, but also just, you know, a way to leave it all behind. And we got our results on the 7th of Jan, 2010.
Okay. I remember coming back from our December holiday, and then in Jan, I knew that one of my best friends in high school and I were both doing mechanical engineering at Wits. So that January was us basically spending together, prepping for what we're going to do and getting ready to be these awesome mechanical engineer students at Wits.
Sure. You were really... I would have been so proud of you and your planning.
Oh, by planning I meant like playing PlayStation.
Oh, never mind. Never mind. So that was it. Like, so those were pretty much teenage years, and, you know, just a summary kind of like how we spent them and what really stuck out.
Yeah.
Is there anything like that sticks out or is defining for you from that period of your life?
I think that period of my life just kind of summed up who I was as a person. Was the very introverted, I like to stay at home kind of person, which is still who I am today. And I can't say that that period sticks out in my memory as anything much more than high school times. I think my life really started after high school. But again, we're polar opposites. So I'm guessing your high school was core.
Yeah, I think those years for me were very definitive in who I am today.
Yeah.
I think they were very, it was the beginning of really defining who I am as a person, because it was that time, that rebellious period, I'm so grateful for. So even though I regret the actions, I don't regret the consequence of what it did to my personality.
Learning who you were.
Learning who I was, being able to stand up for myself, being able to know what I wanted to do. So if I wanted to, you know, have an experience, or if I wanted to stand up for something that I believed was right for me, I did it. Even though there were lots of consequences that came with it, for me, it was the beginning of learning how to do what was right for me, despite the restriction placed around me. And that was, for me, it was very pivotal. It was very, like, life-changing, because I went from being this very obedient academic in primary school, and I had to become the complete opposite in high school to get to the middle afterwards.
Yeah, I see that. I don't know if it's, the fact that girls and guys mature at different times, and that's obviously makes high school a bit more important for you than it was for me. Or if it's the fact that I met a certain somebody who was my joint at the hip friend throughout university, and together we kind of matured together and defined who we were, and that's when I grew up a bit more.
Yeah. I'm also really grateful for high school and, the person I was forced to be because of everything around me, be it, school and friends and everything else, because other than it defining me, it made two people a part of my life that I never knew would never leave or never stop being a part of my life. And that's my best friend, the girl, and my best friend, the boy.
Yeah, so I was going to touch on that. So you actually have friends from high school times who are very involved in your life now.
Yeah, so I mean, my best friend is from primary school, actually. We go back to primary school together. And even the girl best friend, we also go back to primary school together. But the boy best friend and I, we've been constants in each other's lives since primary school. But our friendship really grew and developed in high school. And from then, it was really just unbreakable. Other than those two, I don't know if there's anybody else that I really keep in contact with or go out of my way to speak to. But if I see people, I'll greet, they'll greet, we'll have a little chat or whatever it is. But nobody else that's super.
Yeah, I have no one that I'm super close to from high school. Not to say that I hate everyone from high school and I don't want to be their friends. It's just we never kept that close relationship with any of them. And I think the closest thing I have is the very first guy I met in high school. I still see him online on the PlayStation, and then sometimes we'll just get chatting via the PlayStation app, and that's as close as anyone is from my high school.
That's still pretty cool, though.
I mean, we always wished we could reconnect and meet up and stuff. It just never happened because he worked shifts and I didn't, and
yeah, sometimes life just gets in the way.
Life gets life.
No, life just gets in the way.
Life is life.
Life just gets in the way.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is pretty much high school stuff. I think there's other topics that I know we're going to talk about that will probably link back to high school, and we'll wait for those to get back to that. But I think this is a good summary of who and what high school was. So thank you for this.
Thank you.
And until our next episode, shop sweet and aware. Lots of love.